welcome to today's video. So in today's video we are going to look at the topic returning awareness back to awareness. So we are called to return awareness back to awareness. So let's start by by imagining awareness. Okay. So awareness is like an so we have the ocean and we have the beach, and all that is aware. The ocean, the beach is all awareness. And then while this beach was doing its thing, a dot, a dot of water jumped out of it. Okay, so a dot of water jumped out of the activity of the beach, and that dot of water happens to have its own pair of eyes. Okay, because the ocean has its eyes, the beach activities has its eyes, and so that dot of water did not just jump out on its own, it jumped out with multiple other dots of water. So it jumped out with other dots of water collectively, okay? But each one of them are observing the activity of the beach and the ocean. Now, what is going on, which appears to be, which we can call an illusion, but at the end of the day is all part of the dance. Okay. So what is happening is that the dots of water, they don't want to return back to the beach. They don't want to. Okay. So what they do is they drop to the sand. They get the sand wet. They drop and they get the sand wet. Okay. So in that way, they found a way to reduce to slow the process by which they return back to the ocean by dropping on the sand and getting the sand wet. Okay, so most of us are like we are like this dot of water that don't want to return back to the ocean. Okay, so the ocean has done a very amazing thing by ejecting us in a way, having given us the creating a matrix that can showcase ejection. So, and by ejecting, realize that the contents of ourself, experience is simply observation. It's simply through observatory activities. Everybody is always observing, and through observation, they decide what movements to make through observation. So everything that observes has an eye of observation. Okay? So that eye of observation comes from the ocean of observation. If we as particles jumping out of the ocean realizes that all there is simply observation, then the sea from where we came from must be filled with observation. Okay? So another thing that can be observed is that when the um, particle moved from the ocean to outside away from the ocean, what changed was the thought packages, the thought processes the the phenomenon. Okay, so the thought processes of the phenomenon changed while the phenomenon was going on in the ocean. While something was going on in the ocean, while there was no fracturization, no separation, there was only thought processes that dealt with self-contemplation, self thought processes that were pertaining to self and its mechanics, like the mechanics of awareness, how it works. That was what was that was all the thought processes. But as soon as it moved from the ocean outside to this space where there are more than multiple dots of water, then it stopped self inquiries and started questions that had to do with other dots. Okay? So instead of self inquiries, he started wondering what this person is saying, and this one is wondering what that person is saying, and this one is thinking of what I said, or how that person looks like, or whatever physical things that we use to define our experience. So all that started happening here rather than self exploration, self thinking. So, in that sense, awareness gave out its power, which is to be aware. Give out its power to you and I so that we can have an individual expression. In our individuality, we spend most of our time judging ourselves based on how other people interact with us. Okay? But for anybody who is going back into the ocean, for anybody who is going to return back to the kingdom of God, then you will spend more time in self-interaction, self-contemplation. What that means is that you will spend more time trying to figure out how you are in the moment. How is it that I am in this moment? So that question gives rise to finding out how existence works, how it works. how the present moment is, thanks to the observer observing. So we return awareness back to the giver of awareness by taking our attention off our own linear experience. Okay, so what we would naturally think of, our judgments about what is happening in the world, what is happening in the neighborhood, what is happening in the church or in the mosque, whatever it is, there is more emphasis laid on self exploration, silence, meditation. There's more emphasis laid on these things than who is the next president or who is going to be the next president of a country, or whatever prophecy that has been prophesied. And all these things do not matter in the grand scheme of things, because all that is required is for you to return back to awareness. And returning back to awareness requires that you stop feeding from the collective and start feeding from the nature of the ocean. Okay. So while the water is around here, the dots of water and the waves of the water, there's so much noise. There's so much wave noise. Okay. So in our world today, our the wave, the sound of waves include the music we hear, the waves that a um, a popular person, releases, um, what so actions that really disturbs us, that traumatizes us, anything that we have to go back over and over again because we could not process it completely at once, so we return. All these things are waves. Okay, but if we look beyond the wave, knowing the nature of the beach and the ocean, we can see that right at that beach area, just looking a bit beyond, you notice like a sort of stillness, calmness of the ocean. It's quiet. So by spending more time in silence, in quietness, then there is more awareness. There is more awareness. So when you give your little awareness back to the ocean, in that sense you are dying, then you realize that the awareness is expanding. By remaining silent, by being silent in meditation, you don't lose knowledge, you gain even more knowledge, you gain more, you understand things more. And in the same way, you let go more, you let go more. So staying in the place of meditation is a it's a god it's a god it's a godly thing, because you are returning awareness back to the awareness giver, and by returning it, you gain more, you gain more. Because the awareness that we have right now, they are the awareness of thoughts. Okay. But as soon as we return awareness, that is to stop being aware of thoughts as much as we do and start being aware of the fact that we are aware. When that happens more, then awareness expands. Thoughts become more sophisticated, more easier to process. Emotions become more easier to process. And just the knowledge, just the intention that you want to remain silent is meditation. The intention that you would prefer to be silent is meditation. So no matter what noise comes up, as long as that intention remains, as long as you keep holding it, then the mind would the mind would begin to reduce its noise eventually. And in that way you'll be able to return awareness back. Okay, so I hope this video helps. um, I'll see you in the next video.